Good evening. I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. There is news from Washington. I welcome my colleague and co-host and friend Larry Kudlow of Kudlow Reports. Larry's show this evening devoted to signs of bullishness in the economy, but we must begin with the news because what can go wrong and why? The Senate has approved new language for the document to be voted upon, a resolution authorizing U.S. military force, AUMF-UMF. The new resolution permits up to 90 days of military action, broken down this way, much like a house closing. 60 days without combat troops into Syria, and then the option of additional 30. The Senate is also requiring the Obama administration to provide a diplomatic solution to end the violence. The committee, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, will debate this new resolution Wednesday, tomorrow, within hours. And the Senate Majority Leader, the Democratic calendar controls the Senate because it is the majority, expected to schedule the vote for early next week. Good evening, Larry. The Syria debate in the Senate Foreign Relations dominated the day. Larry, the Tomahawks were all scheduled to fire last Friday evening, about 3 o'clock in the morning Damascus time. We, since then, have been in an alternative universe. In your conversations today on these last days, Larry, were the market touts, were they ready for not shooting? Wasn't everybody ready to, hadn't everybody steeled themselves for, here we go again?
Well, I'm not sure of that part. It was interesting when John Boehner today walked out of the White House meeting and said he would support a new resolution. Stocks sold off 100 points. They had been up 100 on the Dow, and they immediately dropped down to below zero. I think they were minus 30 or something. They finished up 20 for the day. I don't think Wall Street really understands this yet, and I think, if anything, as is often the case with these wars, you're a seller going into the war, and then you're a buyer after the war begins. That's the usual pattern. I just want to know what you just read. Okay, I didn't hear anything that was particularly objectionable, but I don't understand. Are we going in to do damage to Assad? In other words, are we going to take out his air force? Are we going to take out his airfields? Are we going to take out his artillery, his rockets, hit his military hard? Are we going to do those things? In other words, are we going to change the whole balance of this civil war by really inflicting severe punishment on Assad and his military? Because if we don't, then, John, I'm not sure why we want to do this.
All very good questions, and I have partials. And here's what I've got. This is Christopher Hormer of the Institute for the Study of War, who is a Navy commander, an aviator, a veteran, who has apprised me of what we can expect. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyers in the eastern Mediterranean have about 96 tubes each that can fire Tomahawk missiles that are subsonic cruise missiles with 1,000-pound warheads. Those will take at least 45 minutes to reach a target in Syria because they will not violate the airspace of Lebanon, so they're going to fly around. That 45 minutes gives pretty much anything with wheels a chance to get out of the way. In addition, we can expect the Russians to provide very good information to Damascus when the TLAMs are fired, because there's a heat signature when they come out of the destroyers or the submarines or from aircraft. We have aircraft based in Cyprus. So they'll know when they're inbound. So therefore, what are we going to destroy? Only soft or medium targets, I'm told. These are not good against hard targets. That would be bunkers or something serious like armor, like tanks. Soft targets like an aircraft or a fuel depot. And only targets that can't move, Larry. In other words, something like an airfield we could put a hole in, but we can't hit anything that can get in a truck and drive away, like a leader or an armor division.
But can we bomb their air force where those planes are?
Yes, we can destroy very quickly, according to Chris Harmer, the 6 airfields that matter. Right. We could take them out. The question is that sufficient to whatever the mission is?
Can we take out supply depots?
Nothing hard, no bunker, very unlikely we can go after chemical weapons storage or anything serious that's buried. That would require fixed-wing aircraft and strikes similar to what the Israelis have launched in these last weeks.
Well, I don't know. If we can take out the airfields and we can take out the Air Force,
right?
Those are, I mean, from military people that I've talked to, that's very important. It doesn't do the whole job, but it does an important job.
It does deprive resupply from Iran,
right,
because weapons and men and money come all the time from Tehran. So without a good airfield, they'll have to improvise.
So if we're going to degrade some of that, at least, that's good. And then I guess, and you tell me, are we going to upgrade the rebels down south, who are supposedly being trained or armed, even though none of that has really happened? I think there was a deployment today, because that's got to be part of it. I mean, you got to degrade Assad's air force, and then you got to upgrade the rebels. I mean, that's what McCain is saying, and I think McCain has the story right. But I think if you're not going to do that stuff, and you are going to just, shoot across the bow, whatever that means, doesn't sound very promising, then I don't know why you do it. I honestly don't know why you do it, except for this. Maybe there's one thing. This was I had Senator Ron Johnson on tonight, who's a skeptic, and he's a hardline hawk.
I have him down as a no right now.
Well, he's a no right now. And also I had Paul Wolfowitz on, who was another hawk. And basically I argued that the United States has to protect its own credibility, that we can't stand by and let dictators launch weapons of mass destruction. We cannot do that. In fact, it isn't even about Obama. It's about the office of the presidency, that we just cannot allow this to happen and stand by and do nothing. That is a major, major part of the, because if we do that, and we don't inflict any real punishment on Assad, then that sends a bad signal to all the bad dictators, including Iran and North Korea and whoever else pops out. So these are big, gigantic global issues. No wonder the stock market is worried about that. It can't figure out what's going to happen. The other thing, John, is what happens next? In other words, does any of this stuff spread in the neighborhood? Does anybody focused on that, planning on that? What's the neighborhood? The neighborhood is Israel, Lebanon,
Turkey,
Kurdistan,
Iraq, yes.
Right. That's a very important neighborhood. By the way, Iraq has a lot of oil, both the northern pipeline and the southern pipeline, which could drive oil prices to $150 a barrel if that ever gets hit. So what about that stuff?
What you're asking is another way of putting what I've been told. To always recall when you approach a situation, a combat situation, to remember that the enemy gets a vote. Mm. This is not a passive force. This is an active force that is right now, since last Friday, has been moving assets around. And tonight, the reporting out of Israel, the Times of Israel, says that Assad's military forces are moving into the civilian populations.
Right.
So these are not easy shots. You recall during the Hezbollah war of 2006, the joke in Bakan, it wasn't much of a joke. All the families there were provided free housing. There was a living room, a dining room, and a rocket room. That's how Hezbollah prepared for the Israeli Air Force. I suspect that the same men who ran that was the IRGC, are preparing those rocket rooms of Damascus right now. So there is no easy target. And to demonstrate to the American people that there was a point of launching 90 or 450 TLAMs is going to be difficult from after battle photographs, because you're not going to hit neighborhoods where the troops are now moving, is what we're told, Larry.
Well, I just go back to the airfields and the
sure, you'll take out the airfields,
and
right?
The rockets and other things, as you say, that are not moving around.
The zoo.
I think that would be very positive. Somebody has to give assurances, though. See, what I gather in this foreign relations hearing today, and again talking to Senator Ron Johnson, but also from others, they just don't believe it. They don't believe it. Republicans don't believe it. I don't know where the Democrats are on this. I mean, liberal Democrats lining up behind Obama to hit Assad strikes me as most curious.
It's the world turned upside down, Larry. Did you ever see so many hawks in the Democratic camp?
Never.
Ever?
I don't believe. I basically don't believe more than 3 of them.
The ghost of Lyndon Johnson is wandering around in the Senate chamber right now, saying, "Where were they?" Larry Kudlow of Kudlow Reports and Kudlow Radio on the weekend. My colleague and co-host. We turn to Syria and the markets next. I'm John Batchelor.